Welcome to PBCJ's coverage of the Lower House. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The session will start with prayers, followed by a roll call of those in attendance. This is usually followed by questions and answers to questions, statements by ministers, items on the public business, and private members' motions. But before we begin, let's try a parliamentary trivia question. The Cabinet initiates government policies and programs and is responsible for the general direction and control of government. Is this true or false? Get the answer at the end of this introduction to the Lower House. Under public business, Minister of Justice Delroy is to make his sectoral presentation. During his presentation, you can expect Minister Chuck to give an update on the modernization of the court system. You could also hear about the major boost from the Government of Canada through the $1.3 billion Social Justice Project. The project will strengthen and promote a rights-based and gender-sensitive justice system that achieves equitable outcomes for all Jamaicans. It will also assist in modernizing the court's records management systems. You should know that the Jamaican legal system is known as a common law system. The common law system is one of the three major types of legal systems in the world. Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Pernell Charles Jr. and Member of Parliament for Manchester North Western Mr. Michael Phillips are down to make their sectoral presentations. For your information, the Agriculture and Fisheries Ministry has been spearheading several cross-sector partnerships aimed at driving food production and supporting economic growth. Also, there has been an increase in production in several areas of the sector. That's what's on the agenda. It should be noted, though, that elements of the day's agenda can be added, removed, or replaced. If you're planning to attend a session, here are some rules you should keep in mind. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed, unless so authorized by the presiding officer. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent, and there should be no smoking inside the parliamentary building. It's almost time to go to the main event, but before that, let's get the answer to the trivia question we asked: true or false? The Cabinet initiates government policies and programs and is responsible for the general direction and control of the government. It's true. In fact, the Cabinet must consist of the Prime Minister and not less than 11 other ministers. No upper limit is specified. Not more than 4 ministers must be appointed from the Senate, and they may have portfolio responsibilities. The other Cabinet ministers are appointed from the House of Representatives. Cabinet ministers may be assisted by ministers of state and parliamentary secretaries. Each minister conducts the ordinary business of his ministry without referring to any other minister. However, important matters, especially those which may become the subject of discussion in Parliament, are brought before Cabinet for discussion and decision. Now over to the proceedings.
The Speaker at birth.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that, we having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please be seated. This honorable house now resumes its sitting. Which mic am I using? I need the name of the two people inside, the director of public prosecution, EPP, Paula, I mentioned her. And who else? Where is it? I just want to make sure. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Mallow Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Miss Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Miss Crawford, Miss Daly, Miss Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Miss Hamilton, Miss Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Miss Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, Miss Morrison,
Members, as usual, it is indeed a great honor and my privilege to welcome everyone to the continuation of our sectoral debate. I want to pause for a moment to extend special welcome to a number of persons who are here with us this evening in the gallery, and I notice the gallery is very full this evening. I want to mention and welcome especially Mr. Dermot Spence, Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Miss Grace Ann Stewart McFarlane, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, Mr. Derek McCoy. Not here. I was wondering if my eyes had grown dim because I'm one of his students and I'm not recognizing him there. We have with us this afternoon Ms. Paula Llewellyn, King's Counsel, Director of Public Prosecutions, Mrs. Lona Brown, yes, I see Mrs. Brown, former Administrator General, Mrs. Stacey Ann McCarthy, Acting Administrator General. We have with us this afternoon Ms. Gabriella Phillips. Is Ms. Phillips here? I'm expecting her. The daughter of Speaker of the Opposition spokesperson this evening, Mr. Phillips. Students, teachers from the Mile Gully High School, other specially invited guests who are here to support the persons who are speaking this evening, and I know I see the Minister of Agriculture's wife sitting in front. And I'm looking all about anxiously for the former Speaker of the House, the Honorable, I know he's here because I saw him, but I'm not seeing him. But I want to mention him. He is the former Speaker of the House, the Honorable Pernell Charles, and not just the former Speaker, but this evening I think more than the former Speaker. He's a proud father of the Minister of Agriculture, Pernell Charles, who speaks this evening. And of course, his daughter is a member of Parliament, and she's here with us as a member of the group, but I know they sit specially this evening and proud to be related to the Minister of Agriculture. I am looking, I'm not seeing the High Commissioner from the British High Commission. Yes, former Speaker, I'm not going to allow you to sit without recognizing you. But I just said, I know that you are not just a former Speaker. This evening, you're here as a proud father of the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Pernell Charles, Jr. President of the Transport Operators Development, Mr. Edgerton Newman, I'm not sure he's here, and we're expecting Mr. Louis Barton, President of the Jamaica Association of Taxi Operators, to join us this evening. Members, I'm going to crave your indulgence for my own self as I welcome everyone, and I also welcome all persons who are joining us online via the various social media platforms. I crave your indulgence as I ask you to allow me to take a special moment this afternoon to welcome someone, Janelle Atala, from the National Irrigation Commission. And I'm doing that and craving your indulgence because I have to share a quick story. I have in South Trelawney my own 3 Golden Girls Club, for which Miss Atala, Miss Yvonne Dalrymple, who is not here, are my other members. I'm, of course, the most golden of all the girls there. However, in age, you know, in age, that's why I'm saying so, because you know the significance of the Golden Girls is age. And both these women, Yvonne Dalrymple and Janelle Atala, who is part of the Irrigation Commission, have shared a strong interest and dedication to the work I have undertaken these past 20 years as Member of Parliament in South Trelawney. And we, as a trio, continue to empower our communities and strengthen the link between the resources and the results we get when an election is called. I look forward to their continued support and fruitful commitment in helping Jamaica to be the place to live, work, and raise our families. I thank you all, and I know this is going to be a wonderful sitting, and there are a lot of expectations. The Minister of Justice speaks this evening, and I'm not going to tell you where my relationship with him starts because he doesn't show it. I'm not going to minister because they wouldn't believe. So I want to welcome you all to the sitting of the House this afternoon. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We certainly have a full gallery, and I join you in welcoming all those present. Madam Speaker, at this point, I would ask if items on the agenda could be suspended and we go straight to public business so we can have the presentations by the ministers, Minister Honorable Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, as well as the Honorable Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, to make their sectoral presentations, and after which Mr. Michael Phillips, Member of Parliament from Manchester Northwest, will also make his presentation. Thank you, Madam
Members,
Speaker.
the question before the House is that we suspend the items on the agenda and go immediately to the item on the agenda, public business, to allow us to begin hearing the presentations of the sectoral debate scheduled for this afternoon. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader. Minister, the Honorable Delroy Chuck.
Madam Speaker, permission is sought to speak from a seat other than my own.
Yes, permission.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise this afternoon in this honorable House to address this Parliament and the nation and to give a report on my stewardship of the Ministry of Justice. I note with a sense of humility, Madam Speaker, my appreciation for staying strong at the wicket in this my 8th consecutive year as Minister of Justice. This in itself, Madam Speaker, is not an easy feat, as I shoulder my duties as the representative for the great constituency of Northeast St. Andrew, serving as their Member of Parliament for 26 years. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the voters of Northeast St. Andrew.
One moment, Speaker. There's a loud hum within the Parliament. Please. We have done all that we need to do to procure our new mics. And so we are operating on one that is limping ahead. So I'm going to ask you to be quiet so that we can hear our speakers this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to thank the voters of Northeast St. Andrew, having returned me six times here, and they don't need to tell me hi. I live in the constituency. Some of my delegates are here, Madam Speaker. My 2 councillors are here. But I would like, first of all, Madam Speaker, to thank you and the staff of Parliament for the tremendous support that you have given to us as members of Parliament as we make our presentation. I also, Madam Speaker, extremely grateful to the Prime Minister for the trust he has reposed in me in undertaking the vital role of ensuring that Jamaica's justice system functions fairly and effectively. I'd also, Madam Speaker, like to thank my colleagues in Parliament and in the House, notwithstanding what people see and believe that we are volatile towards one another. We do get along very well.
Yes.
Every now and then, they invite me for a drink downstairs. I must, Madam Speaker, acknowledge the sterling service of Team Ministry of Justice, piloted by the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Grace and Stuart McFarlane, in sharing the burden and difficulties, even as we work steadfastly towards our goal of promoting justice for peace and harmony. Madam Speaker, the Jamaican public deserves no less. And with the assistance of the Minister's team, we're well on our way to achieving this primary goal, making justice accessible to everyone as we work towards a first-class justice system. Madam Speaker, the judiciary, under the steady leadership of Chief Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, and the staff of the Court Administration Division have played a significant role in steering the process towards ensuring that Jamaica's justice system achieves the goal of being one of the finest, if not the best, in the Caribbean and by extension internationally. To our esteemed stakeholders, Attorney General Derek McCoy, Solicitor General Marlene Aldred and her team, the DPP who is here with us today, Madam Speaker, if I might say the usually vocal DPP, Mrs. Paula Llewellyn and her staff, the Director, Court Administration Division, Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin and her staff, for the continuous drive towards improving the justice system. To the Acting Administrator General, Mrs. Stacey Ann Carty and her staff, our key affiliated agencies and departments of the Ministry of Justice, including the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Council, Mrs. Diane Watson, and her staff, and the Victim Services Branch, led by Mrs. Dawn Binns, the Director. Special appreciation, Madam Speaker, in order for the President of the Court of Appeal, the Honorable Mr. Justice Patrick Brooks, appeal judges, and the hard-working Court of Appeal staff. The Supreme and Parish Court judges and their staff for the yeoman's service and support to the Chief Justice to ensure that Jamaica gets the best justice system. My heartfelt gratitude to our international partners, the European Union delegation in Jamaica, Global Affairs Canada, United States Agency for International Development, USAID, the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Section in the United States Embassy, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF. These partners, Madam Speaker, have provided much needed financial and technical support to build on the achievements of our ongoing justice sector reform programs. To my trusted team of close protection officer, Sergeant Howard Hamilton, my driver, Mr. O'Neill Ennis, I'm grateful for their support. Also, my two councillors, Madam Speaker, I think they're here, Councillor Joy Cottrell and Deputy Mayor Winston Ennis, and my constituency liaison officer, Wayne Lawrence, all of whom have shouldered the weight of the work in the constituency and assisting in ensuring a 7th consecutive term as Member of Parliament. Last, Madam Speaker, but not least, my wife and my family members. Unfortunately, they're not here. My wife is enjoying my 6th grandchild up in Northern Carolina, Northern Carolina. I'm from Clarendon, so you will. That's all right. And I'm not there to enjoy the fellowship. Madam Speaker, my sincerest thanks to you all. Madam Speaker, 2022-23 has been a remarkable and successful year for the Ministry of Justice. We can declare proudly that the justice system is well on its way to becoming a first-class justice system. While, Madam Speaker, we acknowledge that much more needs to be done, it is clear that the justice sector has never been in a better position now since independence. Madam Speaker, there have been significant and far-reaching improvements at all levels for the Jamaican citizen to access justice in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Justice, I can say that while we work towards a 5-star first-class justice system, We have not reached there as yet. But I can say, Madam Speaker, that there are various sectors within the Ministry of Justice that have reached 1 or 2 stars, and I will point them out, even while the whole justice system works towards a 5-star, first-class, world-standard justice system. So, Madam Speaker, shortly we will issue our booklet. Half of it will consist of data in the appendices, because if I try to speak on each area, it might take me much longer than I deserve or, for this afternoon. Madam Speaker, I begin with the Administrator General's Department, the AGD, which has been a model of success as an executive agency. The department has been voted the best executive agency, the best customer service agency, and the most creative agency. To date, Madam Speaker, 3 of its customer service team members have won awards in the Civil Servant of the Year competitions for 2019-20, 2021, and 21-22. No, please, members of the gallery can't clap, by the way.
Members, let me quickly remind you that as happy as you are and excited, we're not allowed to clap or do anything. Yes.
This year, Madam Speaker, the Administrator General Department celebrates 150 years of existence, a significant milestone, making it even more appropriate, therefore, to highlight the outstanding work of this agency as it serves the people of Jamaica. I publicly acknowledge Mrs. Lona Brown and ask her and the 3 customer service persons to stand up in the gallery. While the Parliament and Madam Speaker, while the Parliament and a grateful nation really appreciate and thank them for their service. Madam Speaker, Mrs. Lona Brown recently retired as the Administrator General and Chief Executive Officer, having given the department over 27 years of sterling and dedicated service. Under her leadership, the Administrator General Department transitioned to an executive agency, received ISO 9000-2015 Quality Management System Standard from the National Certification Body of Jamaica, and was the recipient of several customer service awards. Madam Speaker, she has served the department and the country extremely well, and this Parliament salutes her and wishes her the best in retirement. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Justice is very proud of the achievements of the Administrator General's Department. Since Mrs. Brown assumed leadership in 1996, there has been steady and detectable improvement in the operations of this key department of the Ministry of Justice. Given the time constraint, it is not possible to list all the achievements. So please refer, as you will get the booklet shortly, to Appendix 1 for greater details, while I share a few significant ones here. I will ask for the booklets to be circulated. Not only will the booklets be circulated, Madam Speaker, but those persons who are listening in can get a flip copy of the booklet on the MOJ, Ministry of Justice website, or also on Instagram or Twitter, so they can follow not necessarily my speech, but to see in the appendices all the outstanding data that we have collected in the appendices. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Justice is really very proud, and I would say, Madam Speaker, that here at the Administrator General Department, they are now getting instruments of administration within 3 months. Now, Madam Speaker, this is a remarkable achievement, because in the past, instruments of administration to be able to deal with the estate of deceased persons oftentimes took many months, sometimes years. Now you're getting an instrument of administration within 3 months. Madam Speaker, in 1996, when Mrs. Brown took over, the average up to then was the closing of about 50 files per month, per year. Since then, the average over the last 27 years has exceeded 200 files per year. But, Madam Speaker, in the last 5 years, this number has risen to over 500 closed files annually. This, Madam Speaker, shows that the Administrator General's Department is definitely not 1 star, certainly 2 star, and maybe 3 star. I won't say they've reached 4 or 5. I expect matters to improve even more as we go towards the 5 star. Madam Speaker, we have more files being closed than are being opened, which means a steady reduction of the backlog of cases. Madam Speaker, it is interesting to note that up to the end of March 2023, the department was managing in excess of $50 billion of real estate. That is indeed a heavy burden, Madam Speaker, and my guidance to the incoming Administrator General is to urge beneficiaries to settle their differences so that more estate files can be closed. In particular, to have most of these properties disposed of, primarily to the beneficiaries. Madam Speaker, there's always protracted and lingering dispute over what is called deadlift. In truth, Madam Speaker, real estate, $50 billion, is being tied up because beneficiaries can't agree. And what is important, Madam Speaker, is for the Administrator General, as I've explained, to get the beneficiaries using mediation, conciliation, to agree as to how they will share up the properties. For the Administrator General Department, Madam Speaker, to be managing $50 billion worth of real estate is too burdensome. And not only that, Madam Speaker, when they're not distributed, the properties deteriorate because there's not enough money to maintain them and to pay some to the beneficiaries. So, Madam Speaker, the guidance being given is basically where the beneficiaries don't want the property or can't agree that they be sold on the open market and then the proceeds shared amongst the beneficiaries. But, Madam Speaker, it's just not appropriate for the Administrator General Department to have so much real estate that effectively is deteriorating, when in fact, if they were distributed or sold, those properties can improve in value. So, Madam Speaker, I congratulate the Administrator General's Department under Mrs. Lona Brown, and her legacy is an Administrator General's Department that is result-focused and customer-driven, and we expect that this outstanding performance will continue. Madam Speaker, I turn to social justice. During my presentation last year, Madam Speaker, I spoke about the launch of the Ministry's public education campaign to increase awareness and the use of our social justice services. We have reached and assisted thousands of Jamaicans to access our free services, ensuring that our citizens see alternative justice services as methods, as the primary means to resolve disputes, avoid conflicts, and settle contentious matters that affect their daily lives. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Justice is convinced that many abuses, violent crimes, and gruesome murders can be avoided if people use our justice services before acting hastily or in an irresponsible manner, which oftentimes leads to death and regret. our people need to use these services. Madam Speaker, it is primarily for these reasons that the Ministry of Justice is promoting justice for peace and harmony. We strongly believe that if the disputing parties visit one of our 20 restorative justice centers or seek mediation, many personal conflicts and disappointments can be avoided. Only last year, Madam Speaker, we opened 2 new restorative justice centers, one in my good friend Southwest constituency at Greenwich Farm, and one in my colleague in Northwest St. Andrew. And these have started to do some good work. And believe me, Madam Speaker, we want to open more. And we will open at least another 2 during the course of this year. Madam Speaker, we are vigorously promoting the simple theme, talk it out, not fight it out. In schools and communities, we have been urging everyone to avoid fights and other conflicts as a way of settling disputes and prevent unpredictable and deadly outcomes. I am pleased, Madam Speaker, to share that in the 2022-23 financial year, the Ministry of Justice, with the assistance of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, operationalized the Social Justice Division. This, Minister, allowed the restorative justice, child diversion, victim services, and mediation to be under one umbrella, thereby allowing for greater oversight of the programs, better coordination, and an overall increase in the efficiency of the services being delivered. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Justice is committed to ensuring that all our citizens, from whatever socioeconomic background, educational level, race, age, or gender, have access to and participate in the justice process as we continue promoting justice for peace and harmony. Indeed, Madam Speaker, we have a toll-free line which can easily be accessed. A person who needs assistance, legal advice, direction to a justice service, they just need to call 1-888-JUSTICE, 888-587-8423, 888-JUSTICE, and the operator will give them information. If they need legal advice, a number will be given for them to call the legal counsel. The legal counsel will put an attorney onto the person to give legal advice, preliminary advice, not representing the person, but at least to say where you can find a lawyer, which lawyer is in your particular district or in the town, and also to give them information as to how they can get further legal advice. But if it is a person who needs a justice service, the operator will direct them to a justice service. So the point, Madam Speaker, is no Jamaican citizen should feel that they can't get justice. They have easy access by calling 888-JUSTICE and get direction as to how they can access justice services. Madam Speaker, restorative justice, also known as RJ, has proven to be an effective tool for healing broken relationships, which is why we refer to RJ as justice that heals. The work, Madam Speaker, of the Restorative Justice Program is to resolve conflicts and restore peace within homes, schools, communities, and the wider society. Frequent matters referred to the RJ program include family disputes, assaults, malicious destruction of property, and larceny. Madam Speaker, RJ is one of our highly valued tools for promoting justice for peace and harmony. Madam Speaker, in 2022-23, we completed 100% of the RJ conferences projected. The conferences, Madam Speaker, also had a success rate of 79%, with the remaining 21% reaching partial agreements in some instances, while some matters remain unresolved and returned to the referral agents for resolution. This data, Madam Speaker, shows that RJ is an overwhelming success. Madam Speaker, when you can have 80% success rate, 4 out of 5 persons get healing, restoration of relationship, that is success. And Madam Speaker, if you look in the Appendix 2, you will see the number of matters that have been referred where there has been healing. Indeed, Madam Speaker, when matters come from the courts, the success rate is over 90%. But we get referral from the police, from the community. Madam Speaker, restorative justice is a major healing tool within our communities, within our schools, within our homes. And that is why, Madam Speaker, we have teamed up with my good friend, Minister Favorable Williams, working with the schools to ensure that we take restorative justice to every school. And my good friend, Minister Favorable Williams, and I frequently visit several schools. We went out to Haile Selassie School with Member of Parliament Angela Brownberg. We had a fantastic time. And we have been, Madam Speaker, together, many schools. And we plan, Madam Speaker, to continue this program because we know that it heals. We went, Madam Speaker, with MP Dennis, my good friend Dennis, out there to Jose Marti School, and we had a great time. The people are so receptive. We soon go. We soon get there. And Madam Speaker, because the program is so successful, we recently, last year, had a memorandum of understanding with 14 denominational groups representing over 3,000 churches, because we intend to take RJ into the churches, working with the churches so that the communities can better understand. Because, Madam Speaker, the real challenge is to get people to buy into the program. If persons know about the program and get a restorative justice facilitator to assist them, then a lot of conflicts can be resolved. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is why the Ministry of Justice, thanks to the Ministry of Finance, we have funding to be able to roll out restorative justice and the other social programs right across Jamaica, because Jamaica, in far too many homes, need healing. The amount of abuses and distress you have in the homes and the neighborhoods and the communities. We as a people, Madam Speaker, must encourage these persons to seek help. And RJ can offer that help. So we have trained, Madam Speaker, over 1,000 persons. And recently, we did refresher training and the commissioning of an additional 150 RJ facilitators, basically, Madam Speaker, to make sure that right across Jamaica, if there are families, parties in dispute, they can get a facilitator to assist them to heal. So, Madam Speaker, so, Madam Speaker, the truth of the matter is that RJ is a success, but we expect that it should be even more successful if we can get it into the nooks and crannies across Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Child Diversion, our newest social justice service, was operationalized in 2020 following the passage of the Child Diversion Act 2018. Madam Speaker, this assists youngsters between 12 and 17 who get into trouble, and the courts and the police are the main agencies to refer them to the child diversion officer. And when they come, Madam Speaker, especially from the courts, we try to mentor them. They get a psychological report in many cases. And, Madam Speaker, in most cases, the mentorship, the psychological support they get, assists them in going straight. Indeed, Madam Speaker, With child diversion, last year, we were able to assist 161 children to complete their diversion interventions and had their charges in court dismissed. Madam Speaker, the program is so successful that one of the complaints that we get from the mentors, many of them are JPs, who mentor these youngsters, is that you can't divest them, you can't get rid of the children. The children want to remain with the mentors, even after the 6-month program is over. And to be fair, the mentors have been saying they still continue. The program, Madam Speaker, has been a success with the challenge, Minister of Finance, that we need to double up the number of child diversion officers in the parishes because they're coming under stress. And therefore, we hope, and I think we have got permission to increase, but we need to double up in virtually every parish, and we're training also more mentors. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Justice, we not only seek to resolve conflicts and divert from conflict, but we also assist persons who are victims of crime. We do so through therapeutic interventions that are delivered by professional and confidential staff at the Victim Services Branch. Madam Speaker, we have a lot of Jamaicans who suffer from criminal activity, criminal violence, from abuses, from domestic violence. And Madam Speaker, this is where the Victim Services really provide a very useful and important service. When persons are abused or suffer from criminality, Madam Speaker, oftentimes they suffer in silence. And in silence, they often wonder how can they take revenge. And one of the problems, Madam Speaker, as I go around and I encourage victims of crime and of violence and abuses, is really to seek help at the Victim Services Office. Because if they don't, you find that revenge, retaliation, thoughts build up in their minds. And these are the ones that frequently, they carry out another act of violence. And the effect of it, Madam Speaker, is you have a cycle of violence, which is what, unfortunately, happens across far too many homes and communities. A cycle of violence. And once again, Madam Speaker, we encourage parties to seek the help. Go to the Victim Service Office. Get counseling. Yes. Let people assist you. If the abuser is well known to you, see if both the abuser and the abused can go to restorative justice. And Madam Speaker, all the evidence suggests that the abused and the abuser, when they get to restorative justice, the healing process not only begins, but oftentimes the parties hug up and cry on one another's shoulders. So, Madam Speaker, we urge Jamaicans who have been abused to really seek assistance at the Victim Services offices, one of which we have in every parish. Child diversion, restorative justice, Victim Services, we have an office in every parish, and we need them to be more utilized to heal the nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the mediation program saw positive outcomes in the last financial year. This program, Madam Speaker, was launched in the Islands Parish Courts on December the 1st, 2021 by MOJ, Ministry of Justice, and it formed part of our efforts to not only facilitate greater access to justice by the public, but also support the judicial system in its drive to reduce court clearance rates. Results of a snapshot performance evaluation, Madam Speaker, recently done, conducted for a significant portion of the financial year, are very encouraging. Based on a representative sample of cases assessed from the mediation services between January and September 2022, it was found that 29% of the cases were completed on the same day. An average of 16 working days elapsed from date of referral to completion. 87% of the cases were completed by the next court return date, and 75% of the cases, Madam Speaker, were fully or partially resolved. 17% remain unresolved and 8% pending. This, Madam Speaker, will assist the ministry in the further rollout and expansion of mediation across the parish courts, helping us, Madam Speaker, to speed up access to justice for every citizen who might ordinarily not be able to afford any other service. In some instances, Madam Speaker, these mediation services provide the opportunity to avoid litigation and the attendant costs and legal challenges. Madam Speaker, I know you're aware because I know you use mediation and many attorneys use mediation. The truth of the matter is that mediation needs to be better used. Madam Speaker, when parties participate in mediation, they can control the outcome. When they go to court, they present their evidence and the judge rules. One party wins and the other party loses. The party who wins said justice has been done. The party who loses said no justice in the court. The truth of the matter, Madam Speaker, is that they need as much as possible to get a mediator to assist them to come to a compromise solution where each party give and take. Madam Speaker, especially, and I will come to that later, in the Supreme Court, when they have matters pending, they have to be in the court waiting 4 years and more to have a case tried. And I oftentimes explain to persons, can you imagine just what happened when 2 drivers come on Flatbridge and neither one wants to reverse, neither one wants to move? That is what is happening in the courts, 2 parties waiting on the judge to say who moves back. And Madam Speaker, as happened at Flatbridge, eventually everybody comes, assists them and say, we're waiting now, you move back. Madam Speaker, if mediation is access, it would free up so much resources that the parties have protracting. And Madam Speaker, I will say later, we need to get mediation going. Madam Speaker, I move to the Justice of the Peace. In the last financial year, 829 JPs were commissioned across 11 parishes, including a few MPs who took advantage and wanted to become JPs. The Minister, Madam Speaker, anticipates that the current financial year will see another 900 JPs being commissioned across the island. Madam Speaker, under the 2018 JP Act, we have made Justices of the Peace responsible for any Justice of the Peace service across Jamaica. So you are now a JP for Jamaica, except when you serve in the lay magistrate courts, you have to serve in the parish in which you reside. So the seal now, Madam Speaker, speak of a Justice of the Peace of Jamaica, not of a parish. Madam Speaker, we want the citizens to be able to access JPs easily without having to go to anywhere. And that is why, Madam Speaker, we have now rolled out emails for all JPs. So every single JP now, Madam Speaker, can get an email at the Ministry of Justice, and the email is basically your first name dot last name at jp.gov.jm. At jp.gov.jm. And I urge all the JPs across Jamaica to make yourself available by really logging in to the email address so that the people of Jamaica can get access to you. Because, Madam Speaker, we have over 10,000 JPs. And if you look at your booklet, you will see on page 15 the number of JPs across each parish. Very nice. Very nice page to show you the number of JPs and the number of JPs who have been commissioned over the past year. Very nice color. Madam Speaker, the truth of the matter is that we have 10,000 JPs, but regrettably, less than 2,000 of them are really very active. So far too many JP means just profiling. We need JP to mean something that you are ensuring justice and that you are a peacemaker in your communities. And that is why, Madam Speaker, during the course of the last few years, we decided, the custodians and myself, to put together JP associations. And these JP associations, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that they can be in touch with all the JPs in their parish. And Madam Speaker, they're doing a fantastic job. Just Saturday night, Madam Speaker, I was invited to the awards ceremony and the first anniversary of the St. Catherine JP Association. They have a fantastic book. They gave awards to long-serving JPs who have served for 25 years and more. And Madam Speaker, this is being repeated right across all the parishes where the JP associations are pulling the JPs as they work together to bring justice across the parish, to be representative of the Ministry of Justice in all the alternate justice programs, to be information gatherers and information providers for the citizens. And that is what the JPs should be, Madam Speaker. They should be easily accessible to the citizens because citizens across Jamaica need information, and we not only sensitize, but we keep in touch with the JPs to provide them with relevant information that the citizens need. And so, Madam Speaker, the JP associations have been doing a fantastic job, and we hope they will continue to ensure that the quality of life in their communities will continue to improve. Madam Speaker, notary public, we have a 104 notary public. Last year, we appointed another 8, and we expect more to be appointed. Madam Speaker, expungement is an area that the Ministry of Justice comes under a lot of complaints, a lot of applications. Last year, we had 2,322 applications, and we approved 1,200. The truth, Madam Speaker, is when people apply, they expect that within days or weeks, it will be expunged. That is not how it works. When persons apply, Madam Speaker, the first thing that has to be done is that a report has to be requested from the Criminal Records Office. And because of the burden on the Criminal Records Office, Madam Speaker, the likelihood of getting back the Criminal Records report within 6 months is really very unlikely. The truth of the matter is, it is not a priority. Well, we are hoping that that will improve. And I know things are improving there because in the last few months, we have been getting more. But in the past, Madam Speaker, we have regularly over 2,000 requests to the CRO for records which have not been satisfied. But over the last few months, we have been getting back quite a few hundreds, and we're hoping that this will be expedited. Madam Speaker, I've been promising, and I have, to take a submission to Cabinet to look at a widening of the expungement jurisdiction. And the reason for this, Madam Speaker, we refuse a lot of applications. There are persons, Madam Speaker, who have been found guilty, yes, of serious crimes. But they haven't served their sentence 10, 15 years. They have returned to the community. They have lived fairly upright life, 10, 15 years. And because the third schedule is quite restrictive, they cannot get expungement. And many of them, Madam Speaker, even though they appeal to the minister is reluctant to grant any appeal where the offense is of a serious nature, notwithstanding that they have been good, upright citizens for 10, 15 years. But, Madam Speaker, I hope during this fiscal year, to bring a bill to Parliament after we discuss it and it is approved at Cabinet, so we can widen the categories, or to ensure that persons who have been rehabilitated and have gone straight in their communities can get their matters expunged. Madam Speaker, marriage licenses is another area that the Ministry of Justice is involved with. Last year, we issued 8,313 licenses, and we provided the Minister of Finance, or the Tax Administration in Jamaica, with 33,252,000. We are doing well, Madam Speaker, but we don't mind more marriages so we can provide more, more money to the Ministry of Finance.
That's not a way to look at it.
Right.
Stability.
No, but in truth, Madam Speaker, we enjoy when people come for their marriage license because it means that a family will be created, hopefully, or at least husband and wife. Madam Speaker, we have had people coming in now. We have to be clear and let it be clear. We do not support same-sex marriage as yet, or ever. The truth of the matter, people have been coming asking us for marriage license for two same-sex. This is, at the moment, is not permissible. Fine? But, Madam Speaker, we are able to say that 99.9% of the applications are dealt with within 24 hours. Where there is a problem is where there's a divorce. We have to wait and make sure that the divorce is not fraudulent, because we have had that problem before, Madam Speaker. So we check with the Supreme Court to ensure that the divorce is a valid one. Madam Speaker, the Justice Training Institute is doing a commendable job, not in training JPs, clerk of courts, and many other areas. And indeed, Madam Speaker, we are now on a program to train more stenographers and court reporters because, Madam Speaker, there's a shortage. So we will start very shortly to assist more persons to become stenowriters and court reporters. Madam Speaker, the technology we intend to bring into the courts, we have spent a fair amount of money in the courts to improve the technological areas.
Minister, your time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, I ask for the Minister to be allowed 15 minutes to complete his presentation. Thank you.
Members, the question before the House is that the Minister be given an additional 15 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Minister, you have 15 minutes to wrap up.
Madam Speaker, may I emphasize, and then going through quickly so I don't abuse the time allotted, if we look in the Appendix 6, you will see a significant amount of work has been done. We have spent over 500 million to rehabilitate courts, and I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that the DPP now has first-class facilities. And she has so much space there, we might be able to appoint more prosecutors. Not only that, she has witness rooms, she has conference rooms, and so, Madam Speaker, that facility, like the Court of Appeal, is really first class. Madam Speaker, there's no doubt that we need new courts, and we are really using the public-private sector partnership, which unfortunately, Madam Speaker, is not moving as fast as I hope and expect. But I really hope, Madam Speaker, that this public-private sector partnership can be utilized so that we can have new parish courts. Madam Speaker, I move quickly, and you can see the expenditure in Appendix 7, the infrastructure. Significant amount of work has been done in the various courts. In truth, Madam Speaker, we want all the courts to be able to function without interruption, to be properly air-conditioned, and people can access and get justice in comfort. Madam Speaker, our legislative program is well on track. I would say that in respect to the various acts that we have done, they have assisted in improving various areas. But I just want to indicate, Madam Speaker, that a joint select committee has been set up to consider 3 pieces of legislation: the Offences Against a Person Act 2023, Criminal Justice Amendment Act 2023, and also the Child and these matters, Madam Speaker. We hope for those persons who are complaining and arguing and discussing on the air about mandatory minimum sentence for murder, we will give them the opportunity very shortly to appear before the Joint Select Committee to provide their comments and suggestions. Madam Speaker, during the course of the year, we hope to bring a mediation bill that will assist in definitely providing the framework for the expansion of mediation at a community level, in the courts, and commercially, so that Jamaica can be a mediation center for the Western Hemisphere. We signed on, Madam Speaker, to the Singapore Convention on Mediation. Singapore is now the mediation center for the Far East. We want Jamaica to be the mediation center for the West. And we hope to have that mediation act shortly. Madam Speaker, judgment debts, we have paid up. All the judgment debts for the last many years, we have paid up. This government, and I thank the Minister of Finance, providing enough funds that no litigant who has sued the government, settled the matter, and sent the documents or the claim to the Ministry of Justice, they are paid up within the hours or days. Madam Speaker, it is so good that last year 530 million was paid out in judgment debt. And earlier, about January, I kept asking the Attorney General Chambers, you have any more claim? Because we have a little more money. And so, Madam Speaker, we had to return 150 million back to the Consolidated Fund. I am urging litigants who have sued the government, settle quickly with the Attorney General's chambers so that we have money, we can assist you, settle, mediate, work with the Attorney General lawyers, settle your matter, and send the final claim to the Ministry of Justice so we can pay out. We don't want to send back any more money to the Consolidated Fund. We want justice for everybody. So once you claim and you have settled, we want to be able to pay you. It's the same, Madam Speaker, with all of the lawyers who have served as counsel in defense matters. No lawyer now who has served on a panel of in defense cases for the legal aid counsel, no one can say they have not been paid within weeks. In other words, Madam Speaker, as soon as they serve as duty counsel or as what they call legal aid lawyers, and they send in their claim, within weeks they're paid. Once the documents. And so, Madam Speaker, during the course of last year, we paid out $366 million to empaneled attorneys. And in a recent gang trial, Madam Speaker, so far we have paid $24 million. As soon as they send in their claim, we know that after they do the sentencing, we may have some more to pay. But the truth, Madam Speaker, thanks to the Minister of Finance, he has been very good to the Ministry of Justice, providing the funds so that people get their money. Madam Speaker, in trying to keep on time, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution has done a fantastic job, not only in prosecuting very serious cases, like the gang trial, but indeed, Madam Speaker, during the course of last year, they did 1122 cases when representing the Crown in criminal matters. Madam Speaker, the disposal rate averaged 95% based on the projections for the year. Madam Speaker, the DPP has now implemented a results-based management system and has managed to set turnaround performance within 24 to 48 hours for various instructions or advice. Madam Speaker, if I might say so, the DPP has succeeded in clearing up all the vintage cases. So the cases now are of recent vintage. Most of the others have been cleared up. The DPP has some of her major achievements: provided the Commercial Affairs Division, provided legal support for the Rehoboth Water Treatment Plant, PPP, and, Madam Speaker, the various offices have worked closely with other agencies to ensure that matters that go to the High Court of Appeal or the Privy Council are properly dealt with. Again, Madam Speaker, if members look at the appendix, they will see additional work that was performed by the departments of the DPP and also by the Attorney General's chambers. Madam Speaker, I end my presentation with the courts. The courts, Madam Speaker, have done exceptionally well. Madam Speaker, today we are tabling six statistics, 3 each from the parish courts and from the Supreme Court. In truth, Madam Speaker, the courts have really performed and are improving in the delivery of justice. Madam Speaker, in the parish courts, they have not only reduced the backlog of cases, but 95%, Madam Speaker, of the cases are tried within 24 months, which means, Madam Speaker, that the backlog is less than 5%. Indeed, Madam Speaker, in some courts, there's no backlog. And I must say, Madam Speaker, that 90% of the cases are actually tried within 12 months. So the parish courts, Madam Speaker, they are now performing at world standard. And Madam Speaker, I want to encourage members to look at these statistical reports, not only members of Parliament, but any stakeholder. And the reason, Madam Speaker, is that these statistics have a wealth, a fountain of knowledge. And even if you only read the Chief Justice's summary or the executive summary, the members will gather important information to show how the courts are performing. When you see the parish courts, Madam Speaker, that on average for every 100 cases that come in, 125 cases are completed during the course of last year. It shows that the parish courts are performing above average. So this is in the criminal courts. In the Supreme Court, Madam Speaker, things have improved, but the clearance rate is still only at about 75%. But in the gun court, Madam Speaker, there's no backlog. All the cases in the gun courts are being tried within 24 months. And the average time for cases in the gun court is now 15 months. So those cases that came on under the new Firearms Act in November, about nearly over 300 cases, they're likely to be tried during the course of this year, early next year. But, Madam Speaker, where you can see great success is in the probate and divorce section. Madam Speaker, in the estate for 2022, the average time to dispose of an estate case is 1.5 or 18 months, 1.5 years or 18 months. The oldest case disposed of, Madam Speaker, in probate was 33 years, while the shortest time taken to dispose of a case was 2 months. A similar situation, Madam Speaker, pertains with family division of the Supreme Court, where the longest case disposed of in 2022 was again 33 years, while the shortest was 4 months. Madam Speaker, the truth of the matter is that attorneys must do better, with due respect to my colleagues, attorneys. If they pursue and prosecute the matters that they have sent to the Supreme Court and they file their documents correctly, the matters can be dealt with within weeks or months, as it is shown. Where if the documents are properly and correctly provided to the Supreme Court, they could get back their probate or divorce matters within a matter of 3 to 6 months. But because of requisitions, Madam Speaker, attorneys keep going back and forth, back and forth. So, Madam Speaker, we urge attorneys to ensure that these are dealt with. Madam Speaker, I must pay tribute to the Statistics Department of the Supreme Court, headed by Dr. Denarto Dennis. He has done a fantastic job in putting together the statistics. If you need any information in the courts and you call Dr. Denarto Dennis, he's able to provide you within a matter of hours. And when you look at the reports, the 6 reports that I provide the Parliament with, and which will be on the House of Parliament website, where we'll be able to see how all the statistics, because, Madam Speaker, the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court, and the Ministry of Justice, we want to use data to be able to drive policy on how we spend our money. And this is important, and we thank the statistician. So, Madam Speaker, I can say without reservation that the courts, the justice system is on the right path. We haven't reached nirvanas yet, but we are working very closely to make sure that we have a first-class justice system. So, Madam Speaker, as I outlined to the court, the Ministry of Justice have made tremendous, significant strides in improving access to justice, providing justice services, and delivering justice to all. As I emphasize, Madam Speaker, Jamaicans can call 888 Justice or 888-587-8423 for justice-related information and to access any of the justice services. Madam Speaker, as we look to the future, there's still much more work to be done. We must continue to invest in the sector, both in terms of resources and personnel, to ensure that justice is delivered fairly and efficiently to all Jamaicans. We will move shortly, Madam Speaker, to a digitized, integrated case management platform to bring our justice system into the modern technological age. Technology, Madam Speaker, will be the main focus to drive efficiency and improvements. Madam Speaker, very shortly, we will have a team from Rwanda. We are in Rwanda, a poor country, Madam Speaker, that has a genocide. And they have in their system a paperless court system, paperless police operation, paperless correctional services, all of them integrated. And we want a similar system here, Madam Speaker, and I hope we can have it within the next 12 to 18 months. Madam Speaker, we must also remain vigilant in our efforts to uphold the rule of law, protect human rights, and promote social justice. I am confident, Madam Speaker, that this sectoral presentation will provide valuable insights into the progress, challenges, and future plans of the justice sector in Jamaica. I look forward, Madam Speaker, to realizing our vision for a stronger, more effective justice system that serves the needs of all Jamaicans as we join hands and hearts together in promoting justice for peace and harmony. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So, Madam Speaker, a great presentation from Minister Chuck. I ask now, Madam Speaker, for Minister Pernell Charles, to make his presentation.
Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Pernell Charles.
Madam Speaker, there is a lot to say about agriculture. And we certainly encourage the discussion from our many experts and those who have varying views on what is the best approach to achieve food security and where they think we may need adjustments in order to truly advance sustainability. What is important, Madam Speaker, is that there is definitely a burning interest in Jamaica from government, opposition, private sector, all of us, to see Jamaica's agricultural sector flourish and unlock its potential. This is our collective goal. So today, Madam Speaker, colleagues, we will examine the major issues, challenges, and the way forward with a reflection on our strategic priorities, our plans, programs, partnerships, policies undertaken by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and its agencies. We will identify and explore for you the Grow Smart, Eat Smart strategy, this formula that requires us as a country to adjust to more empirical and business-like operations so that we can increase production, improve efficiency, and ultimately, Madam Speaker, drive wealth creation through investment in agriculture and fisheries. Permit me to start by giving thanks to the Almighty for His continued blessings and guidance, which has allowed me to successfully navigate this multifaceted portfolio. May my steps and those who work with me continue to be ordered through His will. Madam Speaker, to our fearless leader, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, my deep gratitude for your continued confidence in my leadership within this crucial portfolio as we work to strengthen our nation's food security. To my wife, children, and my family, including the Chief who is here with us today, my sister, Dr. Michelle Charles, who sits with me in Parliament, and my siblings and cousins, all who are in attendance, to whom I'm eternally indebted for your unwavering support as I perform my duties as Minister and Member of Parliament for the West constituency in Jamaica, South East Clarendon. Thank you for your sacrifices, your patience, and your understanding. Madam Speaker, I am blessed with a wise and experienced Minister of State in the Honorable Franklin Witter. Frank, we make a good team, and together we will continue to lead the agricultural revolution for Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I must also convey my sincere thanks and appreciation to Permanent Secretary Dermot Spence, my Chief Technical Directors, the senior management and staff of the Ministry and agencies, our board chairpersons and members within the remit of the Ministry, all who have worked tirelessly to achieve the continued growth and expansion of our sector. We thank you all. To my fellow ministers, colleagues in Parliament, staff, and all of those from the several agencies who provide support to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, let me express my gratitude as we work together as one government to achieve our goal of realizing Vision 2030. Madam Speaker, a big thank you to my vibrant and diligent office and constituency teams who are here today in the gallery, as well as my councillors, including our mayor, caretakers, workers and supporters, without whom, Madam Speaker, I certainly would not be here today. Madam Speaker, they have stuck by me through thick and thin. And together, I am confident that we will continue to advance the goals of the ministry and to build Southeast Clarendon into a model constituency. And I remain committed to you, to providing the best representation I can and giving my all to ensure a better future for the next generation. Madam Speaker, partnership is key. And so we must also acknowledge our local, regional, international partners, including the Jamaica Agricultural Association, Society, and other sector groups, farming organizations, our purveyors and investors who stepped up recently to help resolve some issues in St. Thomas and otherwise. All of you who are committed to supporting our programs and initiatives as we work towards improving and expanding agriculture and fisheries for Jamaica. There is no problem that we cannot solve together, and we have proven that. Madam Speaker, from Westmoreland to St. Thomas, it is our farmers and fishers that we depend on to feed this nation. These are not easy professions, but they are certainly honorable ones. And so today, we thank the providers of our nation's food and sustenance for pushing through the trying times and continuing to nourish us with your hard work, dedication, and resilience. We, as a country, stand by you and salute you for your efforts to build a better Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the debate around agriculture is live, and so we must examine it from several angles. So today, we will look on it from the foundation up. From irrigation, clean soil, clean seedlings, to the use of the grow smart operations to lead to better production and productivity, to the need for expanding storage facilities, and to the much expansive and well-needed marketing to deliver our value-added products to the world, to more exports and less dependency on imports. All of this, Madam Speaker, with an understanding that more investments in agriculture will result in wealth creation for our nation. That's right. Madam Speaker, there's so much taking place. I would need the entire 12 hours. And since I don't have that, we have understood the need to communicate to our farmers and to our colleagues. And the ministry has provided for your reference. Firstly, an annual performance report has been tabled. Secondly, we have provided a How We Serve You book, which details the delivery of service to our farmers, highlighting the benefits you can have as a farmer and simplifying for you how you can access those benefits. We have also provided, Madam Speaker, a document of our projects and our programs, and it is detailed, Madam Speaker, and I would encourage colleagues to go through all of the 23 projects that are listed, from small ruminant development program all the way down to the improvement in our offshore radio communication for fisheries. Madam Speaker, we also have a booklet on the support, particularly to small farmers through the production incentive program, and that is here also detailing what the program is and the support that we are giving and how to our farmers. Madam Speaker, soon we will also launch, in addition to those booklets, the Financing for Agribusinesses Guide, assisting our farmers and investors in terms of access to finance, one of the great challenges that we've had in the agricultural sector. So, Madam Speaker, I know that there will be those who will say that we perhaps have not mentioned a sector player or two, but everyone is mentioned in the documents as referenced. And we are enhancing how we communicate. So some of this information as well, Madam Speaker, will be also translated into audio-visual format to assist those persons who absorb information more adequately by listening and seeing on the TV. Madam Speaker, this is what we speak about when we say growing smart and eating smart, because ultimately we want to have access for all of our farmers and investors, and we want a sector that is constructive and productive and really reflects what we think and know Jamaica can be. Madam Speaker, we can say to Jamaica that this government, led by Andrew Holness, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, is serious about agriculture and fisheries. And this is evident. This is evident, Madam Speaker, in our decisions and in our actions, such as making the largest capital investment in irrigation ever, more than $10.6 billion. It is evident in our expansion of research and development capacity to improve planting material and advance soil fertility mappings. It is evident, Madam Speaker, in the introduction of technological innovation like our breeding hatchery that will increase our fisheries production by multiples when it comes on stream. And also, Madam Speaker, by the improvement in resilience of our local goats and sheep through the small ruminant program. Too many times, the discussion on agriculture and fisheries focuses on opinions and not facts. And so today, for those who may have received some skewed perception based on what you heard, let's listen to some facts. This sector accounts for more than 250,000 registered farmers and fishers, Madam Speaker, and continues to be the largest goods-producing employer of labor in Jamaica. And we have seen an increase of 1.6% in terms of employment from 21 to 22. Agriculture and fisheries, Madam Speaker, contributed 7.3% to our GDP in 2022. And we experienced unprecedented growth, setting new records in production with a historic 7 consecutive quarters of growth. And for the first time, in terms of domestic crop production, surpassing 800,000 tons, with 846,508 tons of production of our domestic crops. Madam Speaker, so when they talk about agriculture, remind Jamaica that we have seen a 9.9% increase from 21 to 22 during the most challenging times in our country. Madam Speaker, at the heart of these positive trends is the commitment of a team that I have come so much to respect. My team, Madam Speaker, the government, and in particular, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, led by our Permanent Secretary, Professor Dermot Spence, and our agencies. Give him a clap. Who are working hard to support our farmers and fishers. We have titled him such. When you sit in the room and listen, you understand why we call him Professor, Madam Speaker. They are dedicated, from senior staff all the way down, to ensuring that our nation remains competitive and sustainable in a rapidly changing world. And they are working tirelessly to create a brighter future for all those who depend on the land and sea for their livelihoods. Madam Speaker, let's get right into it. We said from the foundation up, and the foundation starts with irrigation. And Madam Speaker, the Essex Valley Agricultural Development Project and the Southern Plains Agricultural Development Project are the largest infrastructure programs ever undertaken in the history of this ministry. Madam Speaker, when I say we are serious about wealth creation and investment in the sector, this is a prime example of put your money where your mouth there. Madam Speaker, this year we will be expending an estimated $6.8 billion to cover irrigation infrastructure, farm roads, drains, and support for post-harvest agro-processing facilities in those areas. These projects are projected to impact 3,840 acres of land in our high production zones, Madam Speaker. And this is just the start, as we have now commenced preliminary work on the Pedro Plains project, which is projected to impact 10,127 acres of land, Madam Speaker. And I know my good friends in St. Elizabeth certainly appreciate that. Madam Speaker, we have commenced pre-planning activities to expand irrigation services in the Pedro Plains utilizing surface flows from the Black River at Lacovia. The project, when implemented, will impact at least 4,000 farm families. 4,000. Massive. Madam Speaker, for 2022, the NIC, National Irrigation Commission, led by Mr. Giles, was able to complete the preliminary engineering designs and contracting of the cadastral survey and titling at a cost of $252 million. The key activities targeted for the financial year are the commencement of ownership mapping of 14,000 parcels, delivery of 1,000 titles, and the acquisition of 4 parcels for irrigation infrastructure. This is impact, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, additionally, Essex Valley, SPAD, Pedro Plains, and much more, we are developing more new irrigation systems to impact some of our most important production zones. Let me tell you a few. Madam Speaker, the Yallast, West St. Thomas, Lucky Hill Pen in St. Mary, Hinestown in St. Anne, Lennox Lowleton in Portland, and Holland in St. Elizabeth. This represents over 19,000 acres of new irrigation developments across these production zones. Madam Speaker, we are currently at 38,556 hectares, or, put it in acres, 95,233 acres of land already commissioned in irrigation. And this represents 55% of the lands that we have targeted for near to medium term irrigation coverage. This means, Madam Speaker, colleagues, that we are well on our way, and that the remaining 45%, we are constantly developing new projects and seeking funding to execute those at the earliest. Our goal, our long-term vision for Jamaica must be to utilize every inch of irrigable land to increase production, and to do so by improving productivity. We're not only expanding, we're becoming more efficient. And when you couple expansion and efficiency, it's grow smart, eat smart. Madam Speaker, the NIC has also been exemplary in its commitment to environmental stewardship in the face of climate change and the integration of renewable energy into its portfolio. We have installed solar in 3 of our offices, 5 pumping stations, Madam Speaker, Beacon E, Little Park and F3 in St. Elizabeth, Bengal Station in Trelawney, and Ebony Park in Clarendon. Madam Speaker, it represents approximately 1 megawatt of solar energy. And if I can do the analysis, but I believe the NIC now is one of, if not the top agency in terms of really answering the call in terms of introducing renewable into Jamaica. Madam Speaker, this will reduce water production costs, and this reduction in water production costs will translate into more efficient and reliable service from NIC to our customers. From these interventions, colleagues, we have saved $140 million so far and counting. Madam Speaker, drought mitigation. I won't go too much into it because we have discussed it in the Parliament, but we continue to provide pond liners, black tanks, drip irrigation kits. We continue to support our farmers, like our senior farmer from St. Elizabeth, who through water harvesting and the implementation of support from RADA and the ministry was able to plow through and produce at the same or more even during the drought. Madam Speaker, we have acquired 1 water truck, and we can announce that we will be acquiring 3 more water trucks. Madam Speaker, let me move on. Foundation up. Let's talk about land. The AIC has stepped up the distribution of leases, 47 leases so far, and that includes 15 females for this year. And we continue to the effort in aggressively bringing into our coffers agricultural lands, whether it be private or public, wherever it exists in the country. And through collaboration, Madam Speaker, with the HAJ, NHT, and the SC, the sugar company, we have commenced the favorable exchange of good agricultural land to the ministry. While we have no issue giving up marginal lands that we have no intention to use. And this is a directive in terms of greater efficiency across government. We have also, Madam Speaker, an agricultural land use policy currently being developed that complements the National Land Use Policy. And in collaboration with the Land Utilization Committee, the ministry is ensuring the preservation, access, and utilization of agricultural lands in the most efficient and effective manner. This is going to guarantee that there is a bank of good agricultural land available to potential investors in their various agricultural pursuits. Madam Speaker, since we're talking about land, let me announce today some big steps in terms of land preparation for our farmers. Madam Speaker, we continue to support our farmers, and we will be targeting 60 farmers this year to receive support at no cost for the preparation of their 1 acre of agricultural land, increasing that incentive from last year. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the farmer will have the option, if they so choose, to utilize this support for land clearing of the same acreage. This, Madam Speaker, reaffirms our commitment to our small farmers, and there's much more to come. Madam Speaker, when we talk about water and talk about land, it is important for us to also examine the soil and its fertility, and the seedlings and the quality of planting material that we use. Within the context, then, of examining soil, the government has embarked, Madam Speaker, on a project with our friends from the Kingdom of Morocco. We want to thank them for that support. But similarly, we are now engaged in the process of going across the island and doing our soil fertility mapping. Farmers under this program, Madam Speaker, will be equipped, hear me now, with soil analysis kits, which will enable them, before they point or put one root in the ground, to get a reading of the constituency of the soil. With Clean Seed Project going into clean soil, we will see robust production. Grow smart. Madam Speaker, in recognition that nothing can come from the soil without quality planting material, we have also developed a policy to ensure that Jamaica is at the forefront of managing the quality of our planting material and recognizing the need to preserve and continually develop for the resilience of our crop production. Madam Speaker, our research stations are focused on developing cleaner seedlings. And recently in St. Anne, I was discussing with one of our colleagues from Bodles the 15 varieties of cassava and the work that they are doing in terms of clean seedlings. So irrigation, clean soils, clean seedlings are all components of successful agriculture. So too is the labor and the training required for those who will till the soil. And we'll talk about that soon. Madam Speaker, let me just indicate that the seed policy has been approved and is being implemented. And in support of the same, we have designed that infrastructure at Bodles. The Seed Germplasm Bank has been established. And that's a bank. It's like a bank, but it's like a bank for seeds and not money. And we have signed, Madam Speaker, onto several international programs that facilitate the exchange and storage of planting material for preservation and resilience. And we're also signatory to the International Treaty for Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. I take the time, Madam Speaker, colleagues, to deal with the issues of irrigation, of our soil, and our seedlings. planting material, because these are some of the issues to which several opinions are promulgated on a daily and weekly basis. And I'm hoping that those opinions will now apply the facts. Madam Speaker, the sector is growing and the opportunities for further investment are clear. But labor is a limitation if it is not properly managed. And so we applaud our training institutions that continue to focus on agricultural education at levels from primary straight up. We are working with the Budding Farmers Group, and we'll continue and expand that work to stimulate interest at an early stage, from 3 years old up, Madam Speaker, or even before. With the secondary level, our Jamaica Dairy Development Board is investing heavily to provide schools across the country with a focus on their livestock development programs. And we are supporting and continue to support tertiary institutions like CASE, who has recently launched their new tissue culture lab, as well as advancing aquaponics and hydroponics and seed multiplication systems. All of this taking place right here in Jamaica, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we focus on labor and focus on training, we remind ourselves that the Prime Minister recently announced that there is a removal of any barrier in terms of fees for HEART programs, many of which relate to agriculture. And we hope and we call on students who are interested in agriculture to go and take up these opportunities. Madam Speaker, as we talk about the youth, let us just touch on the 4-H Club. We applaud the 4-H Club, Madam Speaker, who has provided a strategic focus for youth in agriculture. And we note the significant research work that is done in collaboration with our tertiary institutions such as CASE and NCU and others who have partnered with our research facilities in areas like livestock, crops, and soil. And these provide opportunities for our youth in terms of internships and otherwise to be exposed so they can become the next generation of leaders in agriculture. In realizing their mandate, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to report that the Jamaica 4-H Club achievements include their Youth Agricultural Entrepreneurship Program, REAP, where they have trained more than 750. Well, targeting 750, moving up towards training those. 845, were trained, exceeding the 750 target. And some of those, Madam Speaker, particularly have been trained in agro-enterprises in areas such as apiculture, in pig and goat rearing, broiler and crop production, all of these areas in agriculture that we are introducing to our youth. The ministry has provided support in more than $5 million for that. Madam Speaker, the 4-H also established the Youth in Fisheries program in collaboration, Madam Speaker, with InMed Caribbean Partnership for Children. Our 4-H Club was able to establish one of the largest commercial aquaponics systems in Jamaica with a potential capacity of 5,000 tilapia fish, 5,000 pounds of vegetables, all in a 1,000 square foot grow space. Madam Speaker, this is purposeful introduction to our youth. We also have the establishment, Madam Speaker, through these programs of climate-smart agriculture and climate-resilient climate action programs and initiatives for our youth. Some of these also relate, Madam Speaker, to the Engender Project, where we ensure that we have that balance in terms of males and females and the exposure that we give to both. Madam Speaker, we have seen where 891 youth participants, 415 males, and 476 females were trained in climate-smart agriculture, sustainable fisheries practices, and adaptive technologies. Madam Speaker, the 4-H Club, also in collaboration with HEART, has certified some of our youth farmers in areas of poultry and livestock attendant, vegetable crop production, nursery attendant, propagation specialist, and we are calling for more. We have the Tractor Operation and Maintenance Training Program. And we have other programs that we call on our youth to take up. Madam Speaker, as I close this section, we importantly have provided 262 scholarships and bursaries to our youth. Recipients of these scholarships and grants are currently attending Case, UWI, Knox, Nokalvok Polytechnic, and other institutions. And we hope to do more. Madam Speaker, we have also assisted, and we continue to assist some of our youngsters to get global experience. Some of them are in Costa Rica now at the Earth University, and we hope that we can ramp up that support to ensure that more can get this global exposure. Madam Speaker, we are working with the Jamaica Agricultural Society. And before I came here, I had a conversation with their president, Mr. Fulton. And I want to especially acknowledge the JAS and thank them across the parishes for the work. And we're committed to ensuring that we have a stronger communication and relationship. And I know that together we will be meeting with organizations such as the Egg Farmers Association, and I know of the present marketing challenges that you are facing. The Pig Farmers Association, Beef Farmers Association, Coffee Growers Association, Citrus Farmers Association, all of these groups that we will be working together, partnering to make sure that we can provide with the greatest support. So, Madam Speaker, from the foundation up, irrigation, clean soil, clean seeds, the support through labor and training, our youth, our partnerships. Now we're going to talk about production. Madam Speaker, we are impacting our small farmers in big ways. With a strong foundation and farmers on the ground, it is important for us to have a focus on incentivizing and supporting these important farmers and fishers. Madam Speaker, we recognize that there are challenges. Fertilizer and feed being two of the greatest challenges in terms of cost, high input costs that affect production and therefore affect ability to expand. Madam Speaker, I want to refer to the documents that we had here, but to use the opportunity today, as we speak about fertilizer and feed, to make a massive announcement. Madam Speaker, we have been working with our partners, relying on them, speaking to them, supporting them, all as one collective, pushing towards the goal of a better agricultural sector. Madam Speaker, throughout the last year, we have seen where farmers have cried out for the cost of fertilizer. We were able to provide them with support received in our partnership with Morocco, and we thank them for that support and look forward to more. But right here in Jamaica, Madam Speaker, we have companies like Newport Fersan, who was able to give us support and give the country assurances that when the world saw fertilizer prices rising, we saw reductions in fertilizer price. But we know that it's still not enough. And so we continue to do what we can to give more to our farmers. But today, Madam Speaker, in the gallery is Mr. Dennis Valdez, the Managing Director, and I want to acknowledge our Managing Director from Newport Fersan, one of our companies, who I believe has permitted me to indicate to Jamaica that effective tomorrow, we can announce a 22% reduction for all granule fertilizers. And I remind you, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that I heard my colleague, because I don't shy from the facts. But let us remind Jamaica that when prices were going up, Newport for Sun and other stakeholders in Jamaica were holding down prices and getting them down. Madam Speaker, there's no politics in agriculture.
That's right. So thank you, ma'am.
There are policies, programs, plans, and the other big P is partnership. And I want all Jamaican companies to know that this minister values them. You'll never hear me say, that's just because everywhere else is going down. You didn't have to, but you did. And we respect that, and we must do so. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, we as a government are committed to our farmers. And we're committed to assisting them not only with fertilizer, but with the preparation of their land in the right way. And so we will ramp up our support in terms of technical support. And also, we can announce today that we are committed to preparing the land and providing high-quality protein planting material for up to half an acre whenever we can find the farmers that put themselves in clusters across the island. St. Thomas, St. Mary, St. Catherine, Westmoreland, Portmore, everywhere. Madam Speaker, this government is serious about agriculture. Madam Speaker, I don't have the time to go through all the details, so I provided you with the details. But let me just move on quickly. As we speak about fertilizer, we speak about feed. And I want you to know that that support is going to allow for them to be able to increase their fodder banks so we can provide local feed for our animals in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, we also respect and acknowledge the need for more organics. And at this point, let me just indicate, we want to call on our farmers to reach out to us if you need support in terms of application of pesticides and other things. So we are seeing some trends, and I've spoken to farmers when I'm on the ground, and I have a concern in relation to that. And we're going to roll out a program to make sure that the pesticides are being applied in the right way and that we can explore the use of more organics in our country. Madam Speaker, we are exploring organic fertilizer. And we can announce that RADA has partnered and is moving to establish a $30 million pilot project for composting and organic fertilizer production on several farms across the island. Madam Speaker, farmers will be trained and the fertilizer will be used on the pilot farms and then distributed to other farms as production increases. Similarly, we will work with the two established organic fertilizer producers to ramp up production as we provide an environmentally friendly alternative to the inorganic fertilizers. Madam Speaker, we're moving through, breezing through. We're going to discuss farm roads. Madam Speaker, our farm road program has rehabilitated more than 55 roads across the country. Total kilometer of rehabilitated roads is 30,325. The impact of this rehabilitation has been felt across the board. Coffee farmers have benefited from the Borax Spring to Bangor Ridge rehabilitation works in Portland, and they are able now, Madam Speaker, to drive their vehicles closer to the farm gate, making it easier to transport produce from farm to market and farm inputs to their farm. Vegetable farmers along the Ebanks town in St. Elizabeth, because of the road, they're not only paying a lower cost to have water delivered to their farms, but are now able to receive water directly at farm gate, thereby increasing access to water and increasing farm productivity. Madam Speaker, the Farm Roads Rehabilitation Program has created synergies with the Frosty Pod Rot Control Project by rehabilitating the Hampstead Road in St. Mary, facilitating cocoa farmers and small women and farmers to better access farms for transporting inputs and workers to the farms. Madam Speaker, the details are in the documents. But we have several parishes: St. Anne, St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, 6 roads, St. James, 5 roads, St. Westmoreland, 4 roads, and across the country. Madam Speaker, we're in the middle of the tree. We dealt with the roots, we're in the trunk. And we're going to move from agriculture to fisheries. With respect to the fisheries industry, I want to remind this Honorable House of the reasons for this industry being regarded as critical to the Jamaican blue economy. Fisheries contributes to the livelihood of over 200,000 Jamaicans, contributing more than $10 billion to the GDP, while earning export income of over 14 million US. Madam Speaker, there was an increase in aquaculture production year over year, with production moving from 869 metric tons to 949, representing an